welcome to Lead Live, reminding you of your personal genius and how you think in order to actualize what you desire.
Well, we are so honored to welcome you back to Lead Live, weekly broadcast Wednesday, noon hour Pacific Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And thanks to all of you, wherever you're at on the planet, for tuning in, checking us out through Facebook, YouTube, Roku TV, Amazon TV, however you're leveraging us now and in the future. I am so honored to be joined once again by my weekly co-host, monthly co-host, Dr. Martin Kwende. Feels like we're together weekly, although I'm not that lucky. Remarkable man, smart man, who contributes a lot of thought. And we chose to do this series on the wealth equation because of our shared value for faith, family, fitness, finance, and fun. And that's how we choose to define wealth. Wealth without any one of those, it's not really wealth. Yes, finance are critical. We'll talk about that in a moment, at least a little bit. But faith is powerful, and it really informs our topic today and everything else that's part of wealth as well: consciousness, choice, and cultivation. Choose your path and cultivate meaningful connections. So, what do we mean by that? We did a brief summary, and I'm going to read it if you don't mind, Dr. Quinde. And it reads: learn, or we would say, or rediscover the power of your wealth generating thoughts, your power to choose, and your power to determine with whom you will be in relationship, and how these three things determine the type of income you will have and the wealth you'll create. Yes, we're influenced significantly by our thoughts, our choices we make, including the people with whom we spend our time. Being conscious of your future path affects your wealth. And again, faith, family, fitness, finance, and fun. Discover how to clear your vision so that your path to wealth creation is transparent and complemented by the energy that surrounds you. So, Dr. Quinde, you and I were talking briefly earlier, and you shared some gems as you always do. You want to start off because I think this is all about reminding people that they get to be the champions that they choose to be, right?
Is that correct? Once again, thank you for having me on this broadcast. I'm excited to be here always. And I love the topic for today, right? I think it's extremely empowering. And, you know, I wish whoever is listening right now, you can actually tap into your wealth. We call it the wealth equation. But the bottom line is wealth equals impact, right? Use the correct way, right? And to become wealthy, to have influence, you have to learn some basics. And this topic for today is actually, I think, the core of what it takes to create impact, to create influence. And so, for me, the basic equation of wealth, there are two ways you can do it. It says wealth equals opportunity plus mental toughness, right? But it takes a lot of, stuff to become wealthy, to become influential, to make a difference.
Could
And
you define that again? Just again, that's simple because I want people to get that.
yes,
Wealth equals.
opportunity plus mental toughness,
Mhm,
right? And the
mhm.
reason why that is important is that becoming wealthy is not for pansies, as people say, right? You have to be mentally tough. No one's going to drop $1 million in your laps. It's never going to happen, no matter how hard you pray, right?
And let me just say something. Even if someone does, if you're not already mentally wired to receive that $1 million, you won't keep it. It'll be
You
gone
lose
before you know it. And that's
exactly.
why folks who so-called win the lottery, really, unless they've change their mindset about themselves, it's gone within 5 years on average.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why it's so important. It's not just making money, it's actually making money and keeping it. Right. If your mindset is not at the right level, you're not going to keep whatever wealth you have because you're not ready to get in here. So you're absolutely correct. People that win the lottery always end up broke because they don't know how to keep the money. They are not ready yet to receive that kind of money.
So when people hear this notion of mental toughness, opportunity, well, first of all, opportunity abounds. It's all a matter of perspective, right? Some of us see a kernel for a corn and say, "Wow, I really need to eat," and that's and I know 6 months from now, a year from now, I'm not going to have anything, and they just bypass the kernel. Someone else sees that kernel and says, "Oh, I can leverage this. I can actually create something from that kernel." And they are eating 6 months, a year down the line because they've leveraged all the resources that are associated that they have access to cultivate that kernel. So it's all a matter of perspective. But mental toughness, let's go a little bit deep with that. What are we talking about? We're talking about belief systems, right? In part. What else are we talking about?
Yeah. So mental toughness, obviously, mental toughness comes from adversity. And it's more about the attitude that we approach adversity, right?
Mm,
If I understand that I have to go through adversity to succeed,
mm,
then I'm going to welcome adversity.
mm,
But if I don't believe that, then I fight it all the time, right? So when I started changing my career, even in normal life, we go to school, we have challenges with tests, we stay up late at night. We understand the process, so we do it. When it comes to becoming wealthy, most people don't understand the process. So as soon as they have any challenge, they stop, right? But you're supposed to be welcoming the challenge because that's part of the process of becoming wealthy is to go through hardship. Why? Because the hardship changes your mindset. Because everything starts with thinking, right? With the mind. So when you go through hardship, it reshapes how you think. For me, when I switch from being an employee to an entrepreneur, I had to essentially get broke first, again, like totally. So I started shifting how I think because I was challenging my team this week. And I said, every day you wake up, you show one of two ways. You can either show up as an employee or as an entrepreneur. It's the choice. Every day you wake up, you can only show one of those two ways,
mm.
right? If you show up as an entrepreneur, then you're ready to deal with whatever. If you show up as an employee, every time you have any hardship, boom, you stop. You want to go back to the normal good life.
There's something else that's powerful. So when you say you change your thought, that's part of the mental toughness. You experience a challenge, you change your thought about the nature of that challenge, and all of a sudden you're bursting through it. But another part of the struggle that we have to address or experience, the challenges we have to experience, is literally shifting our emotions. So it's thoughts plus emotions. And I call that really reverse it, the heart mind connection. If we don't feel a need to change, we're going to experience the same thing over and over. And therefore, many of us stop out of pushing through that barrier, pushing through the challenge. So it's really important to remember yes, there's the thought that has to change without a doubt, but there has to be that emotional connection. And that's really part of the power of the struggle because we're emotionally connected to that struggle, right? That's why it's a struggle. It's emotional.
Absolutely. Actually, to me, the emotion actually comes out in the way of conviction, right?
Mm,
You have to be convicted about something to win at it. And a lot of times, we treat things very casually. Uh,
mm,
there's no one that really wins in life big time without conviction.
mm,
In fact, I challenged one of the business mentors that they put me in touch with, and he said he's been mentoring businesses for over 30 years. And I'm like, just give me the bottom line. Like, what's the bottom line? He said there are three things you need to have. And I know we talk about that today. The main one, he says you have to have skills. So we teach people skills all the time. You go to work, you go to school, you learn skills, right?
mhm,
How to write code, whatever. That's only one of three. The other one he said was vision.
mhm,
That's one of the things that we're trying to touch on today. Where are you going, right? Where do you see yourself 5, 10 years from now? What kind of impact do you want to leave? And then the third one he said was conviction.
yes.
which is the emotion, that's the passion, right? He said, if you have those three things together, boom, you're gonna explode in whatever you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, conviction, burning desire, emotionally invested, all those things are so critical. And yet, when we think about it, we have so many instances in our own personal lives. And I challenge everyone who's listening to this to think about your own personal life and the challenge that you experience and how you were emotionally connected to fighting through and addressing that challenge or breaking through that barrier, or you were emotionally overwhelmed by it and you distance yourself from it, and then you experience the sense of failure. But here's the powerful thing: just because you experience failure does not mean that you are at a loss. That's powerful in and of itself. So question to ask yourself is, what's the learning there? And do I want to go back to that state and actually move and address that challenge so that I get to experience success? Because you learn from that, moving back, retreating. So when you said mental tough, several things came to mind. And I want to give kudos to where it belongs. And that's Steve Seibold, who wrote the book 177 Mental Toughness Secrets of the World Class. And this is basically looking at the processes, the habits, and the philosophies of what some of whom we consider to be great. And they're great folks across the globe, across ethnicities, across genders, across ages, across cultural experiences, languages. And so the question is, what do they have in common? They their concentration tends to be intense. They do exactly what you said, Dr. Martin. They have a vision. They are connected to that vision. It is emotional priority for them. So they can have that intense concentration. They separate truth from fact. You were like, "Oh, everybody says this. There's a study that says this. That must be facts." And so, but what is your truth? Your truth is your vision. Well, no one's ever done it before. Well, that's the best vision to have. Before computers were created, no one had ever done it before. And yet people would say it's not reasonable. It's like it's not reasonable to fly. It's not reasonable to drive a car when all you're used to is a horse or walking. Everything starts with a vision, and then you begin to systematically chip away and make certain you've got the right plan in place, the right people that you leverage, the right insights, and you're open to possibilities and you take action, and voila. And people are like looking at you, Dr. Kwende, how did you amass all that? You and your wife and your team, how did you do that? And you're like, well, we had a vision, we took steps, we created a plan, we worked the plan, we got results. We saw some challenges, we addressed the challenges, we redid all that over again, right?
Absolutely. In life, it's kind of funny when you say that, Doctor. Every one of us has to go through that process in normal life anyway, except that we don't pay attention to it,
Mm.
right? But when you bring it up there, it's like, okay, because you think about it, there's nothing around us right now. I'm sitting outside, right? So there's some shade or whatever, but everything that I see around me, every one of us that's listening right now, look around you. Everything that you see started from an idea in somebody's head, right? Whether it's the computer, whether it's the programming, whether it's the microphone, everything started as an idea in somebody's head. And then they put the plan together and then they made it happen, right? At the end of the day, we all are going to check out. The question I always ask myself is, when I check out, what are they going to look around and see and attribute to me?
Mm.
What would they say that because I was here, this is what I left? I
Mm.
worry about that all the time,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
the concept of mental toughness is important, but it's really understanding the process that one has to go
Mm.
through, accepting
Mhm.
the process, and then just going through it.
Mhm. Yeah, it sounds so simple, and yet when you're in the thick of it, wow, it's painful. I hope my goddaughter doesn't mind me sharing this, but it reminds me of several nieces, some of whom I've been able to witness, and others I didn't, who went through the process of birthing. Oh my God! as I was sharing with you earlier, I just think women are awesome. I've never been benefited with the opportunity to be impregnated and bring to life. um, and yet you have that with your wife, and I have that with my sister-in-laws and sisters and nieces, and of course my brothers and nephews get to be integral part of that. And yet, this recently on Saturday, I got to witness the birth of another one of my loved ones. And oh my God, the challenge his mom went through. I almost want to cry. In the midst of this remarkable, awesome, beautiful experience was all this deep seated pressure and pain. And I mean, excruciating. She survived. He survived. I mean, it's awesome. And yet, if we just recognize that birthing process, it's like taking our vision and going through that same process can be painful. And typically, when it's an extraordinary vision, like a birth of a child, it is painful. When we accept that that's the reality and we choose, as you say, to walk through that process, oh my God, the benefit on the other side is awesome. That that benefit on the other side is the reason why we're here. Thanks to all the women, current, past, and in the future. So I just that analogy just hits home right now. Wow.
And I think that speaks to the consciousness, right? We have to be conscious of what is supposed to happen and be willing to go through the process
Mm,
itself, right?
mm,
And once we do that, everything else works out,
mm.
you know. Yeah.
So wow. There's a couple of things that come to mind. We're in the financial services industry, and my company, Signature Solutions, does a lot more in terms of just strategic and master planning, executive coaching, and helping nonprofits build out their organization, especially in terms of fund development. But there's also sourcing that we do. And I want you to share some of what you do as well. But when I think about all the things that we do, when I think about finance as one key piece of it, I think about the book that was written by Tiffany. I think her last name is Alice, Aliche. I think one of my uh, 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 colleagues or one of my nieces, one of them indicated the good get good with money. I also think about Janet Yellen, not Janet, excuse me, Pamela Yellen, where she wrote the book on the bank on yourself revolution. And of course, I think about Napoleon Hill in terms of Think and Grow Rich. I mean, there's so many folks I think about. And when we talk about wealth, people typically think about money. And so that's important because money is a means to ensure that we're able to build the life that we want. The house that you're sitting in front of, you got that because you had the financial resources to be able to purchase that home. Uh, the fact that I've got this studio set up, I had the financial means to do it. So money is so essential, but it's not the end. If we just remember that, it's a means to get to the end. And the question is, are we in the right frame of mind? Not only mentally tough, but have the right kind of information in our consciousness that allows us to embrace the accumulation of the means of exchange, money. And I want us to think about the books that we've recommended, and we always recommend books in the on this in Lead Live because we want you to know that our perspective is embedded in so many different texts. But you don't have to believe our perspective. We want you to find your own perspective and leverage all the resources to get to that more fundamentally powerful place. Because we believe that each one of you literally is a champion. You may or may not be in that champion mindset at this time. You may not be in that paradigm yet, but we hope you get there sooner than later. And those of you who are already there, we know this is resonating with you because truth is truth, doesn't matter where it comes from. What do you say about those things?
No, absolutely. I was just thinking as you're saying this about being in the financial industry. I never grew up thinking that I'll be in the financial industry. I'm a scientist by training, and I
That's
loved
correct.
working in the medical device space. And I did that for 20 years, and I was very happy doing it. But when I started becoming more conscious, more aware, it started to dawn on me that there was something missing, right? And I started thinking, I mean, growing up, they told me you have to be strong, right? You have to be mentally tough. They said you have to, have knowledge. So I went to school. They told me you have to have faith. So I go to church and, my faith is very strong. But then I started thinking, they said, if you want to become an engineer, go to engineering school. So I did. You want to become a pharmacist, go to pharmacy school. You want to become a nurse, go to nursing school. But I started to think, if you want to become wealthy, what kind of school do you go to?
Mhm.
And,
Point.
and no, no one has told me that still up to today, right? So it's kind of amazing that we live in a system, and this is the part about the financial system. All of us deal with money every day, whether we like it or not, whether we're aware or not, we still have to do it. But the system is set up so that people that understand it can use it, can take advantage of it, and those that don't, the system takes advantage of you. And this is why being conscious about what's going on is very important. Like you said, Dr. Webb, the money is not really the issue. Nobody eats money, but that's the medium of exchange that we use, right? We talk about the 5 F's: faith, family, finance, fitness, and fun. But guess what? If I ask almost anyone, what are your top three? There's always going to be some finance inside of it. Why? Because if you fix finance, then you can take care of your faith, you can take care of your family, you can have some fun, right? So the finance part is key to basically getting everything to move. But it's not about the money. Okay. It's really about being able to do the things that you really want to do. So understanding the financial system is key. And unfortunately, we live in a society where to get access to that basic information, you need to be talking to a licensed financial professional. That's the law. Okay. So most of us usually never get exposed to the right people, so we never know the right information. And that's what is holding a lot of us back. And I think the fact that we're able to talk about the wealth equation, as we've been talking about this, is something that should be talked about a lot more. And I
Yes.
still want to talk about the MBA. I have an MBA. I have an MBA. When I started getting into the financial industry, I was shocked. And then I went back. I'm like, I did finance, I did accounting, right? And I went and looked, and I discovered everything was about what corporate accounting and corporate finance. They never told me about personal finance. I was like, what? That's what really got me going. I'm like, man, I have to share this with everyone.
And quite frankly, from the time a child is conscious, and we don't even know when that is. So we start right away talking about money, talking about finance, talking about wealth creation, talking about legacy. Why not make things transparent, codify it, operationalize it at the kindergarten level, all the way through high school, within community colleges, within four-year institutions, within community centers, within you name it. Have library related programs, studying the financial industry and how to leverage to the advantage of individuals, families, communities, businesses. What we don't know does not have to be a hindrance to us. There's a statement that we reference, right? And I'm not going to get this 100%. And it basically says, if you fail to plan, many people don't plan to fail;
Let's
they
share
fail to
the
plan.
first. Yeah.
And yet, the reality is that most people don't have the information, even if they do plan, right, to be successful. So the question, as Amy said, not even MBA program do they teach wealth. Right. Do they teach finance in a way that really allows the individual to become an entrepreneur and successful? And I don't mean entrepreneur in the classist sense of running one's own business, but I mean even just being the CEO of one's own household. there's fundamental truths that are consistent. I want us to give one example because I want us to operationalize this notion of vision. So you said vision, and some people get it right away. They know a definition of that is the ability to think about or plan for the future with imagination and wisdom. And imagination is one of the most powerful tools that we have, and it's a mental tool, among others: perception, will, memory. What am I missing? Intuition. These are all absolute powerful mental tools that get to shift and change our subconscious. I want to come back to that in a second. But how do we operationalize a vision of I want to build a family, literally get married to whomever over time, have children and have grandchildren, leave a legacy where they can go into the future knowing how to maintain the financial wealth that we've created as a family and allow for the greater good to be the emphasis of the family and not working just to make money. Okay, but the greater good being the society, the globe, whatever that means for that family. So how do we operationalize that? Let's take one example, a financial instrument. And I want you to go even deeper than I'm going to go. This is kind of going to be, I think, somewhat superficial, maybe. Let's look at what we know to be available people have never heard of. Index universal life. I have been surprised, Dr. Martin, at the number of people who have never heard of indexing, one. Uh, and those who've heard of indexing, including multimillionaires, had not heard of index universal life. Yes, they've made their money through other means. And congratulations to their success, and they've dealt with struggles, and voila, they've achieved. Yet index universal life can be literally a tool that takes a family in their 20s. They put a certain amount away into what we call a life insurance instrument. We call it Index Universal Life Insurance Policy. And with the right construction of it, because as you said, it has to be a licensed financial expert, someone who knows what she or he is doing. They put it in the instrument. Let's say it's $100 a month. Then they add more. They add $500 a month. By the time that they're in their 60s, they've left a legacy for their family that's well in excess of $1 million with the right instrument, earning the right kind of interest rate that compounds. And the powerful thing about indexing, you never have to worry about being tied to the stock market directly with your interest rate plummeting. An index, whether it's Standard and Poor's 500 or whether it is Dow Jones, it literally has a legacy. We can look at the 20-year, the 40-year legacy and say that you go this route, you're likely going to experience an average return of this. No guarantee, but the key thing is you get locked in if you choose, or if you're eligible, you can have an open policy where if the index goes up 35%, guess what? Your money grows 35%. If the index goes up 12%, you guess what? You receive that 12% earnings on whatever principal you have in that base. Now, here's another powerful part of it. It's compounding. So if you know the rule of 72, you take the interest that you're earning on your money and you divide it into 72, and that tells you how long it'll take for your money to double. So if it's 12% return on average every year, then that's 6 years for your money to double. If you start off with 10,000, it's going to be 20,000 in 6 years. You start off with 100,000, you get my meaning, or a million, or 10 million. That's why the wealthy are getting extraordinarily wealthy. That's why the ultra wealthy maintain their wealth. And guess what? Banks and corporations, where do they put their money? In the bank owned life insurance and the corporate owned life insurance. We can go on and on about this, but we want you to know you don't have to just kind of skip and just hopefully figure things out. A lot of this stuff is available in plain sight in text and books. And the wealthy are able to sustain their wealth because they leverage the experts who have this information. So we want you to be aware you don't have to wait so long because you've got your money tied up in instruments that only give you a 1% or a 2% or a 3% return. And the money is tied up in an instrument where the what? The inflation is greater than your return. So you're really losing money. What do you say to what I've just shared?
Web, that's very powerful. You brought some very powerful, you know, uh, practical things to the table when it comes to just understanding the financial landscape. I'm going to back up a little bit. Bottom line is this: when it comes to our money, there are a number of things that we usually have to consider, right? You have risk, you have taxes, you have growth, you have fees, you have leverage, you have income replacement, compounding. All of those are concepts that are important to understand. And no matter what you do, you have to understand those and how it impacts your portfolio. Right now, with no financial education, how do people decide then what they're supposed to do? And without access to the licensed financial professional that actually understand how to help you rather than themselves, right? That can educate and empower you with the right information so you can make informed choices for yourself, the informed decisions. How do you move forward? Because if you think about it, our banking system, for example, is not designed to help the ordinary person, right? They know the right information, but they're not necessarily giving that information to everyone. Even though it's in books, we still have to go find it. That's why the power of what we do in the financial space right now is not necessarily about selling somebody something, it's about what empowering people with the right information so they can make informed decisions for themselves. That's for me why I'm very passionate about what we do. Now, so what you said totally, absolutely makes sense, and it's something we all have to pay attention to. When I also think about it, when you talk about vision, I want to step back real quick because this is very important. On a practical level, people confuse goals and vision because it's not the same. Okay. I try to explain this so it's easy for someone to understand. And this is how I say it. I don't know, it might make sense for some people or not. Goals are things you want to do for yourself. So I want to be financially free, right? I want to make $1 million. I want to make 100 grand or whatever it is. But that's a goal that I want, right? For me. But the vision is what I am willing to do for others. Okay. So, Dr. Webb, if I'm willing to help you get to a certain level, that process of me doing that is called my vision. That's what I'm willing to do for others. But I cannot have my goals without having a vision. Once I help others get to where they need to go, then I'm going to get to where I need to go. That's how it works. So just in a simple way, you have to understand a vision is never about you. It's always about other people. Always. If you go and read any vision, anybody has a big vision to change the world, it's always about other people, not about them. But in the process, the return for them is what they're going to get to where they need to go as well. So in a very basic way, anyone I ask them like, hey, just think about what you're willing to do for others. In return, you're going to get what you need for you. Because most people get confused with the concept of vision. Always. Like, oh, I'm not sure how to think about it. What are you willing to do for others? That's, for me, that's how I look at it. It's very simple to look at it that way. In that process, you're going to get what you need for you, but you have to be willing to do for others first.
Yep. Amy agrees with you. Absolutely. And here's the important thing, folks. We get to determine what that vision is for self. And we get to be clear about the specific goal that we're going to set out to achieve. And when you understand the power of the vision that Dr. Kwende talks about, where you're literally adding value to others, maybe to life itself, because you are creating an instrument that saves lives, or you are facilitating people getting to a healthier state than they would otherwise. You are helping families understand how to love their children, whatever that happens to be. The benefit to you is you can't measure it. And so if you have a financial goal, then all of a sudden the resources just come because you're providing a service that's invaluable to people. Yeah. I want us to go back to consciousness. How would you describe consciousness? Because we titled this broadcast today, Consciousness, Choice, and Cultivation. choose your path, and cultivate meaningful connections. So when you think about that, what does that mean to you, Dr. Kwende?
um, for me, I like to keep things very simple. So for me, consciousness would be what just being aware, right, of your environment, of the things that are important to know, so you can actually figure out where you need to go. Right? When we go to school, they kind of give us the lingo, right? They give us the tools, right? If you're in an environment, you have to kind of be sensitive. If it's about to rain and you're in the field, you kind of need to be able to sense the weather changing, right? To know what you need to do next. If you are in life, you have to be conscious of the system that we operate in, right? So for me, being conscious is just staying aware of the things that are around you that impact how you have to respond. So because that impacts the choices that you make. And one of the things we have here is about choice. You can't choose right if you don't know what's actually available to you, right? You cannot choose correctly without being conscious. You have to know what's around you so you can choose correctly. One of the challenges we have from a financial perspective is what? We're supposed to choose stuff we don't even know. Someone goes to a job, the job offers you a 401k as an example, but they never tell you that there's another option called a private pension plan, right? So you take what they give you, right? And then you believe you need so much, but when we tell you that there's a better option, you go like, well, no, my job said this is the only one, so that's what I take. But they never told you about the other option, so you are not conscious about what's going on. So you tend to what? Be very convicted about something that's not even true.
401k, private pension plan.
Yeah. Or you use a regular bank. Yeah, use a regular bank, but your bank is putting your money in a different kind of what we call a family bank, which can access yourself. I mean, you put this money in a 529 plan, but it's $1 million baby plan. You just need to know the options. That's it. Then you can choose. So you have to be conscious to make the right choice for yourself.
Amy asked, how do you cultivate meaningful connections with clients?
Everyone deals with money, correct? And I help everyone that deals with money. So everyone's my potential client. Okay. So everybody that I meet, I know I can help them if they're conscious about their choices. So my job is not to sell them. My job is to what? Raise their consciousness. So guess what I do? I ask them a bunch of questions. I make them think. Like, the reason why we get used by the system is because we don't think about stuff. Somebody says this is right, you just accept it, but you don't question it. So I make them question what they do. So if I ask someone like, hey, do you feel that financially you're where you wanted to be at this point in your life? Almost always they go like, no. And I'm like, is that because you don't work hard? They say I work hard. So I'm like, what's the problem? All of it's something they go like, wow, I never thought about it like that. Right? So I connect with the client by raising their consciousness. And that's why I love the topic for today. Once I raise their consciousness, I make them know what their choices are. Then they are better able to choose for themselves. I'm not picking for anyone. They say, oh, what do you think I should do? I'm like, no, that's not my job. My job is to show you the options. You get to choose. I don't choose for you.
Educate.
Yeah, you are responsible for your choices. I'm not going to pick for you. But I need to raise your consciousness to your choices.
That's the power. That's part of being that champion that we believe people have the capacity to be. And that's why certain people are champions, because they've taken full ownership, responsibility to understand and to leverage, use the insight, understanding, and expertise of individuals who've already done what ideally they want to do, or have access to individuals who've done that, right?
Yeah.
Now, there's something else we were talking about. And I want us to just re-emphasize choice. You can't choose if you don't know what's available. Or yet you can choose but choices may not be viable choices. They may not be practical. They may not be useful. They actually may be harmful. So, choice, choice.
Not making a choice is still a choice.
Mhm.
So not knowing is not an excuse. You're gonna make a choice either way.
Yes, absolutely. Well, okay. Let's go to cultivating both consciousness and choice to achieve wealth. How do we prepare? How do people prepare to really cultivate? So we've talked about listening to what we're sharing, leverage it, reading certain select books, um, securing a financial expert who could process with you. I would call ourselves financial educators, not financial planners, not just financial analysts. We do analyze, but we're financial educators to facilitate. What else would you recommend people do?
Well, when you say cultivate, I just kind of go back to where I grew up. Okay, my mother was a farmer, so we had from going to the farm, and we have to cultivate the crops. That's how I understood it. So when you say cultivate, it comes to mind planting,
Yes.
right? And if you think about it, all of us have to plant something. We all have 24 hours in the day. Every one of us, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Dr. Webb, myself, everyone, right? Amy, right? Tomoko, all of us have 24 hours a day. How is it possible that Bill Gates is a multi-billionaire and you and I are not? Because he cultivated differently,
Mhm, mhm.
right?
We
So
used our time differently.
yeah, exactly, right. But we have the exact same raw material, all of us.
Mhm, mhm,
But how we cultivate makes all the difference,
mhm,
right? That's why you need to be conscious
mhm,
of the choices that are available to you, right? So you
mhm,
can know how to cultivate correctly. And the way that I see it is very simple. I mean, I, like every one of you, I went to school and I learned to have a good job, or that what I call it.
mhm,
So what ends up happening is what I consider that almost like farming. Every one of us has a set of seeds. Okay.
mhm,
The way you can look at the seeds is you can say, hey, I'm hungry this season. I'm going to eat all my seeds. I'm going to be full, right? You eat all your seed. Or I'm going to be hungry because I'm going to plant some of my seed and I'm only going to eat some. Okay. But next season, because of the law of cultivating, the law of planting, I'm going to harvest more. Okay. Then I'm going to have for multiple seasons.
mhm,
But upfront, I'm going to be hungry a little bit.
mhm, mhm.
That's where the mental toughness comes, where you're going to allow yourself to go through some pain, some hunger. So then for the rest of your life, you have abundance.
It's another way of calling the law of rhythm. Everything has a season, a cycle,
Yeah.
stages of development, patterns. Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm,
So when you think about it, all of us cultivate differently,
mhm,
but we have
mhm,
the same raw materials.
mhm,
And part of why we talk about what we do right now is what helping people be more conscious
mm.
about their choices when it comes to cultivating. So
Yeah.
then they can create exactly what they want.
Mhm, mhm,
And for
mhm,
every one of us, it's going to be a little different, but the principles don't change.
mhm,
If you plant corn, you're going to harvest corn.
mhm.
And based on the law of planting and harvesting, you're going to harvest more corn.
There's something powerful embedded in cultivating for our food, and you can even taste it. I know that one of my nieces brought me something for Mother's Day. I just was overwhelmed. Just a small package, but I couldn't wait until Mother's Day. I had to open it and I had to eat it. I wanted to keep it to Mother, but the smell of love was so overwhelming. I ate it and I felt like I just inhaled it. And so the key thing that to remember is not only gratitude is part of mental toughness, being grateful all the time, but also embedding in there that love, that invaluable unconditional love for self and for others. So that when you cultivate the soil in order to for it to generate whatever it generates that you're able to eat, you experience that love. I mean, it's amazing. I literally can tell when someone has prepared something that comes from love, prepared something because they have to prepare it and it's done quickly. The taste, I don't care if it's using the same vegetables, etc. The taste is qualitatively different. So that vibration that we put out there is powerful. So we want to remind all of us how we feel about self, how we feel about others, how we feel about life itself, literally has a direct impact on everything we experience. I can't say it more fundamentally. We are at our core what? Energetic forces. Our spirits are housed in these containers for a spell. We're going to all die at some point. Hopefully, we all get to live a long life, whatever that means to ourselves. And when we leave, our souls, our spirits, our energetic forces go on to something else. I don't know enough to say what that is. I know enough to know that that's factually true from my experience, lived experiences. So while we're in this spirit, this temple, let's leverage it and let's figure out how to love it, how to honor it. Yes, the nose may not be right, the cheekbones may be off, the lips may be off. I used to think I was the ugliest duckling that you could find. I was going to have a rhinoplasty. And I bought the stuff for a number of years. When I was a kid, I bought that I was ugly, that I had pug nose, I had pig nose, I was never going to amount to anything. I wouldn't live to the age of 20, blah, blah, blah. All these things I heard from adults around me and a few kids who were bullies, but primarily from adults. You're born into these conditions from a 13-year-old. They didn't know she was abused. You were born in South Central Los Angeles, or what's considered to be the hood. They didn't know there was love there. You were raised in these foster homes, so you're not going to amount to anything. They didn't know that I was conscious, that I could hear these things. The powerful thing is in my journey, and everyone has a different journey, but we have a lot in common as humans. We have struggle and we have the capacity to work through those struggles. And so the power of us working through those struggles is where we find our real genius. That's what Dr. Kwende and I are talking about. We all have our personal genius. And so the struggle, if we just see it as an opportunity, if we see it like our favorite fruit or our favorite food that just smells and overwhelms us, like what I just described in terms of my niece Zerica and what she gave me, let me just tell you, life becomes a vista point that we want to get to, that we want to experience every day. We just spring up, do the exercise, go, you know, conquer whatever we want to conquer. And that's really ourselves. The stuff outside is just an illusion or delusion, and to a great degree, a large degree of our own creation. Real, you've got to deal with it. It's part of the challenge of life that we all have the capacity to work through. Yeah, I'm just overwhelmed with what we could do, Dr. Kwende.
Yeah, I muted myself because I'm outside and we have somebody trying to clean. So it's like perfect timing,
When I
right?
think about your lived experience, and and uh, having your parents, and then having parents transition, and then having your older brother, then having people around you cultivate you, and yet you had struggles throughout all of that, and you end up in the United States, you end up in Silicon Valley, you end up as a key executive, you end up earning well in excess of 250 a year, and you end up choosing your wife, letting her know she's going to marry you, even if she didn't have a clue who you were, and then turning that around to ensure that she could be retired from nursing, although she loved nursing, and then building a family, then building a business, and choosing to contribute to countless lives. Choice, but in the process of it all, you had struggles, struggle after struggle. And we just want people to know it's okay, even though it feels painful at the moment. If you allow yourself to just be consistent, the struggles that you experienced yesterday, you'll look back and say, wow, that wasn't a big deal in hindsight. It felt like a big deal. And then it prepared you for the next struggle. Oh my God, but that one's a big one. And you work through that one and you look back, that wasn't that big either, but it felt like it was because didn't understand what I was dealing with. You have what it takes. You really do.
Actually, that prompts me to say something I was kind of thinking about, which is that where we are today is a consequence of the choices we made in the past,
Yes.
right? But that also means that where we're going to be tomorrow is based on the choices we make today.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're not going backwards, we're going forward.
Mm-hmm.
So guess what?
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about the things you did in the past.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be very conscious about the choices you make today.
Now,
because those are going to inform where you are tomorrow.
mm-hmm.
We control what we do right now. That's all that we know. But that has consequences not for us, but for the next 3-4 generations of our family. And that's what we need to
Yeah.
yeah. We need to be really conscious about what we're trying to do every day. Like today, I can choose to be on this webinar right now. I hope that I bring my best. So guess what? The next person that's listening to me, whether right now live or a little bit later, that it can mean something for them. And I'm not sure who's listening necessarily, right? And we don't know who needs what, right? Dr. Webb, there are things you just said right now that I needed to hear, but I didn't know. I couldn't ask you because I didn't know what I needed necessarily. And that's how life works. But we just have to be more conscious, more aware of the options that we have so we can cultivate the lifestyle that we want for ourselves and for our families. And for me, that's what I know that this conversation is really about. How can we help raise your consciousness about the choices that are available to you so you can cultivate the lifestyle that you really want? That's what we're trying to strive to get.
Yeah. Something else that we talked about, and I want us to bring it up because I think this is potent. We said earlier, or I said earlier, you are able to distinguish, a champion is able to distinguish between truth and fact, right? And so as we choose to pursue something in our lives, the champion that we are, as an example, however we define that, we'll have people who knew us when, who will say, I can't imagine that for you. Just be comfortable where you're at. Don't worry about that stuff. Pursuing an X or a Y, don't worry about it. Just be comfortable. What they're really saying is, I'm comfortable with who you were. I'm comfortable with where you've been. And the key thing is to distinguish between their reality and your decision, your choice to make. You get to be and do whatever you choose. And the question is, do you choose to be who you were 20 years ago, 5 days ago, or do you choose to be that vision of yourself, making that impact that you choose to make? I encourage you, if you don't have a vision, create a vision. And if you have one, pursue it. And as people around you telling you, we're comfortable with it, who you are, honor that's where they're at. They have a right to perceive that, to feel that, because after all, you built that relationship. Yet there's something you said, Dr. Kwende, the importance of surrounding yourself with people who are of like mind. I'm paraphrasing, and who complement the you expect to be. And because you're choosing now to be that person that you want manifested in the future. So you've got to function as though you are that person now. Dress as though you're that person. Begin to think and read things that allow you to think in the way that allows you to manifest that person now. So what say you, Dr. Kwende?
Yeah, that's
I
very
already know
important.
what you're going to say, but
Yeah, we all in our lives, we have people we call dream killers, right? They say the worst person you can share your vision with is a dream killer. And we all have some of those in our lives. Make sense? They always tell you, oh, this is not possible. You can't do this. This is not for you. And, we tend to believe them because we think they mean well, right? But bottom line is each one of us is here for a purpose. We are uniquely made.
Mhm.
Every one of us is adequate the way we are today, right? But if we stay this way, we're not going to be adequate tomorrow. But everyone is unique, and we meet for different reasons. So um, it's very important for each one of us to know where we are, where we're going,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
The idea about your association is a big deal, okay? Because just based on even on the financial level, they said that your income is the average of the five people you hang around with the most. That's the truth, by the way, right? So you can try to run away from it, but it's impossible. It's just a numbers game. If the average income for the people that you hang around with is like 100 grand, you probably make around that number, right? But this is the key, and it's important to understand this. It's not so much about the money; it's just about the mindset, because that's where
A
everything starts from.
mindset.
Okay, but the mindset impacts the money too, right? So the money is a practical thing you can tell, because you only get what you think you deserve. So
Mhm.
the bottom line is you have to think about it this way. If you have five closest friends, I'm just giving advice for whoever is listening. If your income is at the bottom of those five, then keep all the friends.
Mhm.
If your income is in the middle, get rid of half of your friends. And if you're at the top dog, get rid of all your friends. You need new friends. Otherwise, they'll be pulling you down. Okay. So we have to be aware of who we hang around with. I tended to spend less time with some of my friends that I used to be very close to, just because as you shift and you grow,
Mhm.
then all of a sudden the conversation doesn't sound the same anymore,
Mhm.
right? The vision that I have, the impact that I want to make, that conversation doesn't flow anymore. It's like
Mhm.
you're not really in sync, right? They're not really helping you get to the next level. It's almost like I think I forgot his name right now. He said if you have your friends, you guys are kind of close together. When you grow and your friend is here, you have two options. Either you come back down to them or you let them come up to you, right? What would you rather do?
Mhm.
I know most people say, "Oh, I want them to come up to me," but you don't control that. You can only control going down. But if they don't come up, guess what? You're supposed to move away. Let them stay where they are.
Mhm. I
Not
think,
everyone is supposed to be your friend.
yeah, and I think the key thing to remember as people hear this, because some folks are going to take this in a way to say, "You mean get rid of my friends? I love my friends," etc. No, that's not the message here. Let's be very clear. It what it and Dr. Kwende speaks quite well for himself. I'm not going to interpret for Dr. Kwende, but from my perspective, I have a lot of loved ones, and they literally range. Uh, the top one in terms of finance is a is a billionaire. I shouldn't say multi, but a billionaire. The person, and of course, I've got loved ones who are just children. We're just infants. And so people are across the spectrum. The question is, who do I choose to go to for my information, for my insights, as it relates to financial development, financial growth, protection, and leaving a legacy? I go to those folks who've done it and done it well, and done it in a way that's consistent with the values that I hold dear: integrity, appreciation for others. So that's where I go. I don't go to family members and other loved ones who I know and I trust and I value, who have very limited resources, or their resources, they may be great, but they're not in the category that I'm interested in. So I am choosing how I live my life. I'm choosing how I focus. And there's something I think I shared with you, Dr. Quindy, and I know where time is up, but earlier when we were talking, you proclaim your vision because you want to leverage even the naysayers as a catalyst to get you moving, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. I tend to not share the vision. I achieve things and then I tell people about it later. And undoubtedly, even loved ones say, "Oh, don't worry about that. You know, you're black. That's not going to work." Or, they don't bring in black women or whatever. I only share it after I've achieved it because I don't want that energy. And so, however you do it, the core that we're talking about is Everything vibrates. Thoughts, feelings, actions all vibrate and all affect us. And what you want is to be in a vibratory space that complements where you're going and who you are at your essence. That's the real truth from my perspective.
I totally agree, and I mean, I have thoroughly enjoyed this particular session because I feel like it's so fundamental to everything that we all want to achieve in life, right?
Mhm,
The lifestyle that we want to cultivate,
mhm,
and the fact that yes, we get aware. I ask people a very basic question, and this is probably the last thing I'm going to say. All of us typically go through annual medical health check. And most of you listen to me right now, that's what you do. And you pay for that to get a health check so you kind of know where you are health wise.
mhm,
But when is the last time you had a financial health check? Most of us forget that the financial health check pays for the medical health check. Every year we get a medical health check, but no financial health check. Everyone deserves to have one. We offer that to you complimentary. That's one thing. Everyone needs to have a financial health check. And we talk about this why? Because the finance impacts everything else in our lives, right? And that's one of the things that most of us are not conscious about. We study, we do medicine, we do engineering, but we don't do money.
mhm,
And all of these things we work for money, right? So
mhm.
hey, we have to change something. We really need to change something. So I'm so glad, Dr. Webb, that we have this platform. And thank you for inviting me. And I feel really blessed to share some of the thoughts that we have. And I know this is going to make a big impact for some people. So thank you very
Absolutely.
much. Yeah.
Well, what I value about you and the nature of this broadcast, it's about bringing to our audience people who are the messages that we share. And you are a pinnacle of that. And I chose that word specifically because both of us are leveraging Pinnacle Elite, thanks to Eric Olson and his wife, Sandra Olson. And I want to thank you, Dr. Martin Kwende, for being a stellar example of leadership and choosing to get out of your own way and create a completely different paradigm that allows you to get in your way and ensure the success of so many of us. Uh, and definitely honor you, your family, and your team. It's a pleasure.
Thanks, Dr. Webb. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
And to our viewing audience, we look forward to seeing you next week if you're available. And just remember, always these broadcasts are online for you to look at in the future. It's an honor to be with you always.